video games or in TV. That's why I never looked at them like, what is this? I've never seen this dragon before. It was just like a different color hue. And, some features were a little different. It was a little hard for me to tell like different Black people apart growing up because my brain, and that's how it works with most people's brains, if you don't see enough of that specific race, like it will be hard for you to recognize different features. Like they kind of all blend together, if that makes sense. It's a very interesting thing that our mind does. But now, obviously, that I've lived in America for a while and there's so much diversity here, I can tell Jamie Foxx apart from the rest. I really enjoyed Django Unchained. Black people were going to European countries and the West, being brought. That's what I heard. That's how it started, because from what I've heard, from what we were taught, at least in school, is that there was the big movement of slavery, that they were being taken out of African countries and just sold and used all around, like first world countries. Actually, pretty much all countries. Yeah, it's so strange. Like, why did they pick Black people, not like, let's say, Asian people to enslave? Why did they pick on them? Just because of their color of skin? Do you think it's because they were lacking on weapons, so it was just easier for like the power trip for one to take over the other? Why did they even let them to enslave them? How come white people didn't enslave, I don't know, all Chinese people? There is a reason. So what is that reason? Why do they let others mistreat them like that? They tried using Native Americans. They died. Okay. So again, you didn't answer my question. Why? Why didn't Black people fight? Did they not have the weapons? To fight for the freedom and independence. Whites and Asians were enslaved as well. I mean, I heard that like some would be kept captives in prisons, or just like if there's some type of rivalry, but I've never heard of like a certain race just primarily being used as slaves, except for Black people. And I always like, actually now that I think about it, why would they not just rise like as a movement, just slaughter all of their people that tried to enslave them? I don't understand. Why didn't they rise? You gotta rise up. Would you rather live as a slave or die as a free man? It depends. I bet some jobs were not that bad. Black people sold them themselves. So it's like a business. It's like a market. That's what you're talking about? Got sold by other Black people. So it does come down to a power play. So what made one to be more powerful than the other? Was that the guns? Was that the weapons? How come one was selling and the other one was being sold? Does it come down to the demeanor of one just being beta and the other one's alpha? Jewish people were slaves in Egyptian times? Interesting. Yeah, Jewish people were picked on a lot as well. I don't quite understand that either. I mean, I heard they're good with money, but... Fighting with spears against people with guns. That's my best guess would be that just their forgery wasn't as developed, and their infrastructure possibly. If you check, most black people from US, they are from West Africa, which is closer to them. Okay. What does that mean? They're just getting free labor on the way back from Europe? So for white people, it was called servitude, basically a prison sentence. Because too many slavers and slave masters were being killed. They were too divided and had no organization. Isn't the part of the Red Sea story all about slaves escaping? Does the term slave come from Slav? Interesting. I don't think so. There were not many Slavic people being slaves. Although there was крепостное право. How do you translate крепостное право? So it's a similar idea. So there was, for a really long time, because you guys know Russia has been a country for a really long time, way longer than America. So there was also separation. There was like higher class or even like middle class. And there were servants, like people that weren't technically free and they were sold, sort of, you can sell them. But they weren't treated as bad as like what I heard about slavery of black people. But they were, I think that people will always try to segregate classes. Especially if we're looking at a system that's similar to capitalism, there's going to be a class that's making more money and that would want others to be doing the work they don't want to do. And whether you pay them or like, I guess some people are just kind of were being forced back then or were being told that their value is not as high as the other ones. So it is almost like a power play, but you always have a choice. It could be hard to get out of the system, but you always can. It's kind of a mindset. Like you got to decide what you want. Plus the Industrial Revolution was on the way. They sold their own off to other cultures and other countries, likely because they were allowed to have families and proper housing as opposed to the Arabs that cut off their balls. Yeah, so крепостное право in Russia, it wasn't as harsh from all of like the stories that I've heard about black people being enslaved. But, you know, it really depends on like the owner. It was more like having, you know how these days you will have servants, people that will cook for you or clean for you. That's kind of what the Russian slaves were. They weren't getting paid, but they were like living in the house and they were treated just like, you know, like cleaning ladies or like cooks. They just weren't getting paid. So in that sense, it is kind of like a slavery. Sort of. Is it not a slavery if you're getting paid? I guess it just depends. It's so subjective. It's like whatever would make it okay in our heads. For us, we were born into slavery for generations with no choice. That's what I mean. It's a mindset. But what if you were born thinking that you're more than that, you're better than that, you deserve better than that? And what if a lot of people start thinking in that sense? And you just rise up altogether. I'm buried in every cotton field known to man. What? You've cut to do. What are you talking about? We did have many rebellions in American history. Dog eat dog. It must have been awful. There have been plenty of white slaves through history. Don't act like you don't know the merchants. Yes, Africa was not advanced at all.